The year is 1415. Against a sea of French might, a small English force faces annihilation. This is Agincourt, outnumbered, outmatched, their bodies ravaged by disease. Yet, a desperate resolve ignited in their hearts. Through a muddy inferno, English longbows unleashed a storm of death, defying every military convention. Here, amidst the carnage, an improbable miracle unfolded. A day that would forever shatter cavalry's dominance. Before the sun dared to rise on St Crispin's Day, a silence cloaked the destined battleground. For weeks, Henry V's army had endured a brutal march, weakened by hunger, dysentery, and despair. Facing overwhelming odds, the young king confronted a stark reality. Survival was a distant, desperate dream. Across the field, the flower of French chivalry swelled in confident numbers, expecting an easy, decisive victory. 8,000 weary Englishmen against a formidable host of 25,000, perhaps even more. The very ground beneath them, a seemingly innocuous detail, would soon become their most potent ally. How could this vastly outnumbered, disease-ridden force possibly triumph against such overwhelming power? This was not merely a battle of numbers, but of ingenuity, leadership, and devastating new tactics. At its heart lay the English longbow, a weapon that would redefine warfare and shatter old traditions. Their courage was undeniable, but courage alone could not bridge such a staggering numerical divide. This was a desperate gamble, a fight for survival on foreign soil against impossible, crushing odds. The French, confident in their chivalric might, saw only a trapped, pathetic English remnant awaiting slaughter. Their arrogance was their armor, their numbers, their shield, blinding them to the lurking dangers. But this day their proud cavalry, the very symbol of French power, would meet its mud-soaked end. Survival demanded more than bravery. It required cunning, strategic foresight, and audacious, unconventional methods. A king's leadership, a general's genius, would transform despair into defiance, and defiance into victory. The stage was set for an epic tale. The Battle of Agincourt, a miracle born from mud and blood. Join us as we uncover how a desperate English army achieved one of history's most impossible victories. For generations, the Plantagenet claim to the French throne fueled a simmering, relentless conflict. This was the 100 Years' War. From the Norman conquest, English kings held vast lands in France. Their inherited ambition ignited a continental struggle. The intertwined lineages of England and France created an unsolvable paradox, a constant challenge to royal authority. Across the turbulent Channel, two great kingdoms watched each other with suspicion, their rivalry echoing through history. A new monarch now ascended the English throne, the young, ambitious King Henry V, seeking to forge his legacy. Forged in youthful rebellion, Henry V possessed a singular vision: to reclaim his ancestors' glory in France. England itself, though recovering from civil strife, still harbored restless nobles and ambition, needing a unifying cause. Henry understood the power of a strong military, forging a disciplined force loyal to his singular, unyielding will. His gaze inevitably turned towards France, a kingdom he believed was his by divine right and ancestral claim. Diplomatic overtures and audacious ultimatums were exchanged, but Henry's demands were designed to be rejected. Meanwhile, France was torn apart by the vicious civil war between the Armagnacs and the Burgundians. Chaos reigned. Henry saw France's internal strife not as a tragedy, but as a providential opportunity for English ambition. The decision was made. England would renew the war in France, launching a desperate, high-stakes gamble. Henry framed his invasion as a holy crusade, a righteous war to reclaim his rightful inheritance from God. From every shire, archers and men-at-arms gathered, answering the king's summons, ready for the continental war. A massive fleet was assembled, loaded with the provisions and siege engines necessary for a grand invasion. In August 1415, the English Armada, a beacon of ambition, set sail for the hostile shores of France. They landed near Harfleur, a crucial port at the mouth of the Seine, essential for securing their foothold. The siege began, a brutal, drawn-out affair. Harfleur became a relentless grinding machine, consuming men. Disease, especially dysentery, ravaged the English ranks. More men fell to sickness than to French blades. After weeks of agonizing struggle, Harfleur finally fell. A victory, but one bought at a terrible price. The English army, though victorious, was severely depleted. Henry faced a critical, desperate strategic choice. Instead of returning to England, Henry made a daring, almost suicidal decision to march his men to Calais. The arduous march began, a grueling journey through hostile French territory, shadowed by their enemies. French forces, led by Constable d'Aubray, shadowed the English, constantly harassing their weary flanks. Relentless autumnal rains transformed the French countryside into a swamp. Every step was a monumental effort. Fatigue and disease continued their deadly work. The English army was a shadow of its former formidable self. Supplies ran desperately low. Soldiers were starving, reduced to foraging, their morale steadily beginning to crack. Exhausted, sick, and starving, Henry's army was now truly desperate. Their fate hung by the thinnest thread. Ahead lay a confrontation that seemed impossible. An outnumbered, depleted English force against a massive French army. As English forces retreated, a different drama unfolded within the French court. Their king lost to madness. Charles VI, once the beloved, now known as the mad, rendered his vast kingdom leaderless. A perilous void. Without a unified crown, France's powerful dukes and princes vied for influence, fragmenting command. Chaos reigned. Into this power vacuum stepped Constable Charles d'Albret, tasked with halting the English advance. A heavy burden. His authority, however, was advisory. The proud French nobility followed their own banners, their own agendas. Yet, France possessed a crushing advantage. Sheer numbers. An overwhelming army gathered, eager for battle. Foremost among them, the flower of French chivalry. Thousands of heavily armored men-at-arms, a tide of steel, mounted knights, brimming with aristocratic pride, believed themselves invincible. Their charge, unstoppable, their victory assured. Every noble heart beat with the promise of glory, to crush the weary English once and for all. Their destiny, this was not merely an army. It was an avalanche of chivalry, poised to reclaim French honor. They outnumbered the English by at least 3-1, perhaps even more. A numerical superiority unmatched. Each man-at-arms, a walking fortress of steel, confident in his impenetrable armor and martial prowess. From afar, the sheer scale was terrifying. A formidable force, ready to sweep aside any resistance. Their strategy was simple, elegant. Intercept the exhausted English on their desperate march to Calais. They would cut off their escape, trapping Henry's beleaguered army, ensuring no quarter could be given. Victory seemed a foregone conclusion, a matter of pride and superior force, not tactical genius. Overconfidence swelled. The English, they believed, were a broken, disease-ridden force, ripe for annihilation. A simple, glorious kill, no doubt clouded their minds. The French saw not a battle, but a grand hunting expedition, a spectacle. The chosen battlefield, a strip of land near Agincourt. Its appearance, deceptively unremarkable, yet crucial. Recent heavy rains had transformed the fields into a quagmire, a thick, treacherous mud. The earth itself conspired. Dense woodlands on either flank funneled the advance, limiting maneuverability for a vast army. A critical constriction. This narrow passage, seemingly insignificant, would dramatically restrict the overwhelming French numbers. A hidden trap emerged. They saw a clear path to glory, unaware the terrain would become their silent, unforgiving enemy. A fatal oversight. Their sheer numerical strength, usually an asset, would soon be blunted by the unforgiving geography. A cruel irony. The deep, sticky mud would sap the strength from man and beast alike, turning an advance into an arduous struggle. This mud, this narrow defile, would become the great equalizer, secretly undermining French martial superiority. The stage was set. Despite the terrain, French commanders remained resolute. Their plan, A crushing, decisive engagement. No mercy, no retreat. The weight of French chivalry was poised to descend, an unstoppable force, confident in its might, ready to strike. As night fell, the French slept soundly, dreaming of an easy victory. The morrow would tell a different tale. The stage was set for an epic confrontation where a small, desperate band faced an avalanche of chivalry. History beckoned. As night fell over Agincourt, a chilling rain turned the battlefield into a quagmire of mud and despair. For the outnumbered English, the night was a crucible of dread, the silence broken only by falling rain. King Henry V moved amongst his weary men, a ghost in the mud, sharing their fear, steeling his own resolve. The English knew their fate hung by a thread. Against overwhelming odds, they prepared for their final stand. Across the sodden fields, the French hosts reveled. Confident of victory, they dreamt of easy English spoils. Overconfidence bred complacency. They envisioned a swift, decisive battle, ignoring the treacherous mud beneath their feet. English scouts brought back tales of French arrogance, reinforcing Henry's belief in exploiting their hubris. The king absorbed every detail, meticulously crafting a strategy, turning French overconfidence into a deadly weapon. Then came the dawn, St Crispin's Day, 1415. A cold, grey light broke over the mud-soaked fields. The English, fewer than 8,000, stood ready, their spirit unbroken, their formations taut, awaiting their destiny. Opposite them, 25,000 French knights and men-at-arms, a shimmering wall of steel, seemingly invincible. The relentless rain had transformed the battlefield. Deep, clinging mud would soon become friend and foe. Longbowmen, the heart of Henry's force, prepared their deadly weapons, each arrow a prayer for survival. French cavalry, the pride of France, found their powerful mounts already laboring against the heavy, clinging mud. King Henry V, despite his own exhaustion, stood tall. His voice, clear and unwavering, reached every man. He spoke not of glory for himself, but of shared honor, a band of brothers forged in adversity. His St Crispin's Day speech was a masterclass in leadership, rekindling the flame of English defiance. A wave of renewed determination swept through the ranks. Fear was replaced by a ferocious collective will to fight. The disparity was stark. French numbers dwarfed the English, yet Henry projected an unbreakable spirit. He knew the odds were desperate, but Henry's resolve was absolute. He would not yield this ground. His defiance was not reckless. It was a calculated gamble, fueled by an astute understanding of terrain and morale. The French, expecting English surrender, found themselves facing an unyielding, determined foe. This was not the plan. Henry rode before his men, a living symbol of their cause, strengthening their courage with every passing moment. The king's presence solidified their trust. Each man knew their king would fight and die alongside them. The English deployed strategically, using the narrow funnel between woods to negate the French numerical advantage. This natural choke point was Henry's silent ally, transforming the vast French army into a vulnerable, compressed target. Ahead of the archers, thousands of sharpened wooden stakes called palings were driven into the churned mud. These anti-cavalry defenses formed an impenetrable barrier, designed to impale charging French knights and horses. The longbowmen were placed perfectly, their angles optimized to unleash a deadly crossfire into the advancing French. Each bowman was a vital cog in Henry's ingenious machine, their skill paramount, their arrows lethal. Behind the archers stood a corps of English men-at-arms, heavily armed, ready to repel any who breached the stake line. The English formation was a masterpiece of defensive tactics, perfectly adapted to the terrain and their numbers. French commanders stewed. Their vast army was a cumbersome beast, unable to maneuver effectively in the narrow, muddy field. Hours passed in an agonizing standoff, neither side willing to make the first move. The tension mounting, Henry watched. The French, proud and impatient, would not hold their ground forever. He knew their temperament. Then, a moment of audacious brilliance. Henry gave the order, "Advance!" A gasp went through the English lines. The outnumbered English began to march forward, audacious and defiant, closing the gap on their unsuspecting foe. Archers moved swiftly, replanting their protective stakes further ahead, extending their deadly defensive lines. This bold gambit was psychological warfare, a challenge to French pride, forcing their hand, demanding a response. The French were stunned. This small, mud-spattered army had dared to advance, shattering their illusion of superiority. Enraged and insulted, French chivalry could no longer tolerate the English insolence. The moment of decision had arrived. The French war machine groaned to life, spurred by pride and fury. The advance they had been waiting for. Henry's gamble paid off. The French were coming, but on his terms, onto his chosen, treacherous ground. The Battle for Agincourt, a mud-soaked miracle, was about to erupt, forever changing the face of medieval warfare. Thousands of French knights, champions of chivalry, began their fated march. Their heavy armor gleamed under a gray sky. Ahead lay a freshly plowed, rain-soaked field. A treacherous quagmire, waiting to consume their might, slowed them. Each step became a battle against the earth itself. The mud clung, a silent, unseen enemy slowing their advance. Across the sodden field, English archers waited. Their longbows, instruments of death, were ready. Despite the mud's resistance, the French vanguard pressed on, fueled by honor, oblivious to the coming storm. Then, a signal. The order rang out across the lines. The English longbowmen drew their mighty bows, a thunderous twang. Thousands of arrows leapt skyward, forming a dark, deadly cloud over the field. The whistling grew to a terrifying shriek. The sky itself seemed to weep death upon the advancing French. Arrows struck shields, helmets, and armor with incredible force. The iron rain began to take its toll. The longbow's power was precise. Arrows found gaps, joints, piercing vulnerable points in their heavy armor. Already exhausted, the French stumbled, lost footing, and fell. The mud now offered no mercy. The quagmire became a trap. Movement was agonizingly slow, draining their strength with every step. Order dissolved into chaos. The vanguard, once proud, was now a struggling, bogged-down mass of men. The narrow field became a deadly funnel. French knights, pressed together, became a perfect, dense target. The arrow storm was relentless, unending. Wave after wave of deadly projectiles hammered the French lines. Wounded knights cried out, their armor offering no sanctuary. Pain and terror spread through their ranks. The English archers, masters of their craft, maintained a terrifying rate of fire, disciplined and deadly. The sheer volume of incoming death shattered morale. Despair began to creep into the hearts of brave men. The once proud French formations dissolved. Each man fought not the English, but the mud and the arrows. The very ground became England's ally. The churned earth trapped, exhausted, and doomed the French advance. The field echoed with screams, the thud of arrows, desperate cries of men trapped within the quagmire. This was Henry's genius, transforming the narrow field into a killing ground, perfectly suited for his archers. French commanders watched helplessly as their vanguard disintegrated. Control was lost, drowned in mud and arrows. Mud-soaked bodies began to pile up, forming gruesome obstacles, further impeding any forward movement. It was an unimaginable storm. Thousands upon thousands of arrows relentlessly poured down upon the trapped French. The heavy armor and the mud rapidly exhausted the French. Every step, every breath, was a monumental effort. The longbows pierced thin points in armor, finding the vulnerable spots. No knight was truly invulnerable here. Their massed formations became a curse. Every arrow found a target within the dense, struggling crowd. The front ranks faltered, then broke. The initial surge of French chivalry was shattered under the barrage, but the lines behind kept pushing, ignorant of the disaster. This created a deadly, crushing bottleneck. Chaos, compounded chaos. The French became entangled, struggling against their own numbers and the mud. Through the carnage, the English archers maintained their discipline, a deadly, efficient killing machine. The field transformed into a brutal tapestry of mud and blood, painting a grim picture of desperate struggle. The vanguard endured an unimaginable ordeal, pinned down, unable to advance, unable to retreat effectively. Men literally drowned in the press, suffocated in the mud, victims of their own irresistible momentum. The English ruthlessly exploited every weakness, every vulnerability, turning the field into a killing zone. There was no respite, no break in the barrage. The Longbow storm was an unstoppable force of destruction. The churned ground, seemingly innocuous, proved a treacherous ally for the English, a silent executioner. Their mighty weapons, designed for mounted combat, became cumbersome, useless in the clinging mud. The longbow, symbol of English tactical innovation, demonstrated its terrifying supremacy over heavy cavalry. Disbelief turned to grim resignation. The flower of French chivalry was being systematically dismantled. The constant, horrifying chorus of whistling arrows became the soundtrack to their unfolding nightmare. The great human wave of French nobility, once unstoppable, crashed against a wall of mud and arrows. The muddy field became a testament to tactical genius, a mud-soaked miracle that forever shattered cavalry might. The French vanguard, a struggling, entangled mass, finally met the English line with a desperate, crushing impact. Amidst the churned mud, a brutal, intimate dance of death began. Steel clashed, armor groaned. Their numbers became a curse. Trapped and suffocating, French knights struggled to raise their weapons. English resolve, honed by hunger and cold, met French desperation in a terrifying, primal struggle. The battlefield transformed into a hellish maw, swallowing hope, spitting out shattered bodies and broken wills. Every inch of ground was contested, every breath a testament to a warrior's fleeting survival. The archers, now unburdened of arrows, joined the melee, their lighter weapons proving deadly. Standards wavered, then fell, symbols of collapsing order swallowed by the suffocating press of bodies. The ground itself became a gruesome tapestry, woven with blood, mud, and the remnants of glory. Their grand charge had faltered. Now, ensnared by mud and men, they faced utter annihilation. The English, fighting for survival and their king, exploited every weakness in the French congestion. The sheer weight of their armor, once a symbol of power, now became a suffocating, lethal burden. Against the odds, English captains led from the front, their unwavering courage inspiring exhausted comrades. It was a fight without quarter, where every man's life hung on a single, desperate, precise blow. The cacophony of battle, a symphony of screams and clanging steel, echoed across the bloody field. Individual acts of incredible bravery punctuated the chaos, defying the crushing weight of the French vanguard. Slowly, imperceptibly at first, the French mass began to fracture, their once formidable cohesion dissolving. King Henry, present amidst his men, witnessed their desperate resolve and the enemy's mounting despair. Above the carnage, the English banners remained aloft, symbols of a stubborn, unyielding will to prevail. The mud claimed more than armor. It claimed lives, hope, and the very concept of chivalric combat. Panic began to ripple through the French ranks. The weight of their numbers became a death trap. The English, lighter and more agile, capitalized on every misstep, every moment of French hesitation. Disbelief turned to terror as the flower of French chivalry withered under the relentless English assault. Henry V moved amongst his soldiers, a king fighting beside his men, bolstering their flagging spirits. Surrender was a fleeting thought, often ignored in the brutal, visceral, and unforgiving rush of battle. The French rear, paralyzed by indecision and the horror before them, failed to reinforce their dying vanguard. Resourceful and desperate, the English adapted, turning captured French arms against their former owners. Attempts to rally proved futile. The momentum of fear was greater than any leader's desperate call. The battlefield became a graveyard, built from the fallen, a testament to the devastating cost of hubris. English endurance, born of necessity, shattered French arrogance. Victory was slowly, brutally, being forged. Amidst the carnage, a growing number of high-ranking French prisoners were taken, awaiting their fate. Suddenly, a chilling alarm. Word spread of a renewed French attack, threatening the undefended baggage. Henry faced an agonizing choice: risk losing everything to protect his prisoners or ensure his army's survival. The perceived threat, though minor, was enough. A small local attack became a crisis of command. With a heavy heart, King Henry issued the unthinkable command: execute the French prisoners to prevent a rear attack. A terrible silence fell over the designated area. English soldiers, some clearly reluctant, obeyed their king. The harsh reality of war stripped away chivalry. Survival often demanded acts of appalling brutality. It was a dark stain on an otherwise glorious victory, a grim testament to the battle's desperate stakes. The sight of their fallen comrades, coupled with the prisoner executions, broke the last French will. The retreat became a full-blown rout. French soldiers, nobles and commoners alike, fled in utter terror. The English, weary but victorious, pursued only briefly, their strength spent, their objective achieved. The field was silent, save for the groans of the dying. Agincourt lay transformed into a vast, muddy charnel house. Henry V surveyed the devastation, a victory secured, yet stained by the immense human cost of war. Agincourt was a miracle of resolve, shattering French military might and forever changing the course of history. As dawn broke over Agincourt, a chilling silence replaced the battle's roar. The field revealed its brutal tally. Thousands of French knights and men-at-arms lay dead, their rich regalia now merely mud-caked shrouds. The flower of French nobility was annihilated. Names echoed across Europe, now whispered in shock and grief. Princes, dukes, and counts. An entire generation of France's leadership lay broken. A dynasty bled out. Their numbers, once their greatest strength, became their ultimate weakness. The sheer scale of loss was unfathomable. In stark contrast, English losses were astonishingly light, a testament to their disciplined archery and chosen ground. Henry V walked among the fallen, his face etched with the grim reality of victory, the price of his triumph. For France, Agincourt was a trauma, a psychological wound that would fester, shattering national pride and morale. The political landscape of France was utterly destabilized, a void in leadership, ripe for further English exploitation. For the English, it was miraculous, an impossible victory against overwhelming odds, boosting morale beyond measure. Henry V's prestige skyrocketed. He was no longer just a king, but a divinely favored conqueror, a legend. The English believed God himself had intervened, proving the righteousness of Henry's cause and his claim to France. Agincourt solidified English claims to the French throne. Henry's audacious gamble had yielded immense dividends. This was not the end, but a new, brutal chapter in the 100 Years' War. England's dominance began. The scales of power in Western Europe had irrevocably tipped. Agincourt redefined the course of history. The toll on French nobility was catastrophic. Entire lineages were extinguished, creating a profound power vacuum. English casualties, though heartbreaking for those affected, were militarily negligible, a near-perfect, low-cost victory. France plunged into deeper political chaos. Their military might was shattered, their government utterly paralyzed by loss. England, invigorated by victory, now held the strategic initiative. The path to consolidating claims on France was clear. France's once formidable cavalry arm was crippled, leaving the kingdom exposed, vulnerable to Henry's future campaigns. English maritime power, already significant, was now undisputed, a direct consequence of Agincourt's profound victory. Agincourt would forever echo in history, a testament to courage, strategy, and the devastating power of the longbow. The raw cost was paid, the legend forged. Henry V, now the master of France's destiny, looked to the future. Agincourt was more than a battle. It was a watershed moment, forever altering the course of medieval warfare. Its echoes resonated across continents, reshaping military doctrines and challenging long-held assumptions of combat power. The legacy wasn't just in victory, but in its profound impact on the very fabric of military thought and culture. Agincourt signaled the twilight of chivalry, an ideal shattered by the brutal realities of mass, disciplined archery. The heavy cavalry, once the undisputed kings of the battlefield, found their supremacy challenged, then broken. Their charging might was blunted by mud, their steel armor pierced by arrows, signaling a new era of warfare. The age of the individual heroic warrior began to wane, supplanted by disciplined, coordinated formations. Against the might of the cavalry, the longbow emerged not just as a weapon, but as a strategic equalizer. Its capacity for rapid, sustained fire and formidable penetration transformed battlefields, proving devastatingly effective. Agincourt solidified the longbow's fearsome reputation, validating its power against even the most formidable foes. This simple, yet devastatingly effective, projectile weapon proved superior, ushering in a new chapter of military tactics. The longbow's deadly efficiency demanded a complete re-evaluation of battlefield strategy and troop deployment. The battle fundamentally shifted perceptions of warfare, emphasizing discipline, terrain, and projectile dominance. It was a stark lesson. Technological advantage, combined with intelligent strategy, could overcome sheer numerical superiority. Commanders across Europe began to adapt, recognizing the irreversible changes wrought by this muddy, bloody field. The strategic brilliance displayed at Agincourt continues to be studied, a timeless testament to tactical innovation. Beyond the battlefield, Agincourt's dramatic narrative was immortalized by the pen of William Shakespeare. His Henry the transformed the battle into an epic tale of English courage and resolute leadership. Shakespeare cemented Agincourt's place in cultural memory, crafting a legend that still inspires centuries later. Agincourt became woven into the very fabric of English national identity, a potent symbol of resilience. It represented the ultimate underdog triumph, a smaller force achieving impossible victory against overwhelming odds. The battle remains a touchstone for strategic brilliance, a testament to what disciplined courage can achieve. Agincourt, a mud-soaked miracle, a legendary victory whose profound legacy continues to shape history and inspire generations. Agincourt, a name etched in history, a battle defying all logic and probability, a true military miracle. It stands as a profound testament to extraordinary leadership, turning impending defeat into unimaginable victory. This was a masterclass in tactical innovation. The terrain, the longbow, exploited with devastating precision, and a shining beacon of the indomitable human spirit, where sheer will triumphed over overwhelming odds. Agincourt forever altered the course of warfare, proving disciplined infantry could shatter cavalry might. Its lessons on terrain, morale, and leadership continue to resonate in modern military academies worldwide. Beyond tactics, Agincourt forged a powerful narrative, deeply embedding itself into national identity and pride. An enduring symbol of resilience, it inspires generations, reminding us of extraordinary courage in adversity. The incredible story of Agincourt is but one chapter in humanity's vast, epic military history. Don't miss future explorations. Subscribe now and hit that like button to support our work. Share your favorite Agincourt moment or deepest insight in the comments below. We love reading them. Help us grow this amazing community. Share this video with fellow history enthusiasts and friends. Together, let's continue to unearth and appreciate these incredible narratives that shaped our world. Thank you for joining a leading analysis channel on this journey through history's greatest conflicts.